Hey guys, East from FGC Academy here. Recently, Capcom released a Season 2 update for Street Fighter V. This includes a slew of changes for the characters, as well as mechanics updates for the entire system of the game. It can be a little bit difficult to sift through the notes that they released, so what we're doing here today is taking a look at some of the more influential changes that you should be on the lookout for Season 2. Let's take a look. Taking a look at some of the changes that happened to Necalli, compared to most of the cast, he actually received fewer changes than a lot of folks. Most of his changes came from the fact that things were changed across the board. For example, overheads being more negative on hit, things like that. Yeah, he saw relatively few changes, a few tweaks to his current system mechanics or his current playstyle, but yeah, overall, not a huge difference in the way I think you'll be playing Necalli. First of all, a really nice buff I think the Necalli players will really love is the fact that his V-trigger, in V-trigger, his overhead is now chargeable. So you charge it up for about 38 to 40 frames, I believe, and once fully charged, it does +7 on hit, which allows for a full combo from an overhead. It's also +2 on block, so he continues pressure after a fully charged overhead. And just some damage information for you. It does 100 damage on hit for the first hit and 150 stun, which is a great damage starter. 100 damage for the first hit. Next, his command throw inputs were changed. So a lot of Necalli players in Season 1 complained about the fact that he had way too many special attacks mapped to punches, and so sometimes you would get moves that you didn't want. For example, the charge attack might come out instead of his command throw. So a lot of players really complained about that, and Capcom answered them by changing his command throw attack into kicks instead of punches. That's for all versions, light, medium, heavy, and EX. They are all kicks now. Next, before in Season 1, Necalli's stomp was actually a projectile hitbox only, which meant that if you had an attack that was projectile invincible, when he did his special stomp move, you could basically blow through it with your projectile invincibility. Capcom has changed that in Season 2. It is a normal attack now. It hits like a normal button or like a physical attack, but it has the property of projectile durability, which means the attack box will stop a projectile, but it is now considered a normal hit, and those moves in the past that were projectile invincible will no longer beat this move. I think a lot of Necalli players will like this, considering it just ruined their pressure in some situations. And now let's take a look at some of the nerfs he got. Maybe one of the largest ones is the fact that his standing medium punch now is at less frame advantage than it was before. So before he was at +2, so he could continue pressuring after a standing medium punch. Now it's at 0, and that might not be so bad considering the distance that it left the opponents at. However, now the pushback for hit and block have been reduced. So trying to push someone away with standing medium punch, you don't really get that luxury anymore. You have to do one and then you're done, and your opponent can likely attack you or do something to stop your pressure. Next, the damage to a lot of his special moves were slightly nerfed. Especially his charge attack and his stomping attacks. So the charge forward, where he kind of blows through projectiles, saw 10 damage reduction across the board. So now it does 80, 100, and 120 respectively, light, medium, and heavy. And also his stomp saw a bit of damage, a bit of a damage nerf. And also his super in and out of V-trigger lost 10 damage. I think now they do 330 and 370 respectively, normal and V-trigger. To kind of offset this, Capcom did increase the power or the strength of his DPs, or his dragon punches. So now the light version does +20 more damage on hit, and the medium punch version does 10 more damage on hit. And the last nerf here that he receives is the fact that his standing heavy kick has a bigger hurt box on recovery. Not a huge nerf to Necalli, considering this happened to a lot of characters. Their recovery hitboxes or hurt boxes were made bigger, so that they could be punished more often and allow characters to play that footsie-oriented style of game. So yeah, Necalli, considering the slight nerfs that he got, I think the buffs really make up for it, especially the fact that he's even more powerful in V-trigger. At the end or the middle of Season 1, we saw a lot of players experimenting with the playstyle of only going for V-trigger based combos in the neutral game, and whenever they got damage, so that they got V-trigger faster. Because I think it's no surprise to anyone that he becomes the strongest character in the game in V-trigger. And considering the fact that in V-trigger he's even scarier, I think Necalli players will really enjoy the changes that he got for Season 2. In Season 1, Vega was a character who was really strong, but often got outshined by the top tier of the cast. And as a person who played character or players like Nemo on a weekly or monthly basis, I can certainly tell you that Vega is a strong character, and seeing the buffs that he got in Season 2, I think that we'll likely see more Vegas placing in higher spots in tournaments in the future. So first looking at some of his buffs, overall he has better frame advantage on his moves. Standing medium punch with the claw now is +2 on block. Standing heavy punch with the claw is now +6 on hit, probably allowing for new combo opportunities. Standing light punch with no claw is now +6 on hit. Standing medium punch with no claw is +4 on hit now. He really saw a lot of, crouching medium punch on block is now +1. So he's going to be a frame trapping monster now. In addition to that, his crouching heavy punch is now a crush counter without the claw. I think that this is mostly to make up for his weaker anti-airs. However, I'm interested to see if this works out somehow in the footsie game. However, I don't think it will. I believe it's most likely going to be to catch late jumping attacks. Next, his V-trigger, which did a good amount of damage, now will do 150 stun on hit. Capcom also mentioned that they've changed some of the hits or the way that the hitboxes interact, so that now whenever he does hit you with the rose, he's guaranteed to get all of the hits for full damage. In addition, his wall dive did receive additional stun, so +50 stun on pretty much all of the versions. He also saw better downward range. To kind of make up for this, they did change the wall dive a little bit to reduce the amount of active frames that are there. So it has less active frames, but it has better range, and it does more stun when he does get the hit. And finally, looking at Vega's special attacks, his rolling attack has increased stun across the board. So now on hit, you can expect to be doing at least 150 stun, if not 200. So on 150 stun for the light and medium, and 200 stun for the heavy, as well as the EX versions as well. Let's take a look at some of the nerfs that Vega got. First of all, his overhead, like the rest of the cast, is now -6 on block. I think that's something that is unavoidable, so they have to just take that. His forward heavy punch has its crush counter properties changed. So in the past, you could do a forward heavy punch and then maybe get a slide, crouching heavy punch in to do damage, or maybe even V-trigger. Now the forward heavy punch crush counter knocks the opponent down, so it's more difficult, if impossible, to follow up. I think it's no longer possible to do forward heavy punch and the crouching heavy kick to get damage. And next, his crouching heavy kick, the slide, did receive a nerf in the fact that it has more recovery now. So in the past, you could make it positive or more positive depending on how far out you hit them. Now I think it's almost always going to be negative if the opponent blocks it. He also saw a damage reduction from 90 to 80 there. So this is Capcom's way of saying to Vega players that you can't keep abusing this move. And finally, while he did receive a better frame advantage overall on his moves, his crouching medium punch without the claw and his crouching medium kick with the claw are now slower on startup. Crouching medium kick went from 7 frames to 8 frames, although now it is +7 on hit, and the crouching medium punch went from 5 frame startup to 6 frame startup. Also, it does have a bit more recovery, so 2 more frames of recovery there, from 12 to 14. So basically, they made him better on hit, but like the rest of the cast, they slowed down some of his attacks that you see more at the footsie's range. And so yeah, Vega was a character who I think was really strong in Season 1. Going into Season 2, I think he got a lot of buffs that were really welcome. Having more frame advantage, he does more stun across the board. His wall dive from Barcelona attack is even better. The fact that he lost some crush counter properties, the slide is more negative, means that players who were trying to abuse the simpler stuff with him will see more difficulty in Season 2, but overall he'll be a much stronger character. And again, I hope that he does place better to show his true potential at tournaments. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought about the changes so far in the comments below. Also, let us know what characters you'd like to see next. So we are trying to get these out as soon as possible, hopefully finishing up the entire cast in about 2 or 3 weeks. So let us know who you want to see next. Thanks, take care, keep on fighting.